Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. So this week is SEC spring meetings. And SEC spring meetings, I'm sorry, they basically serve as an SEC propaganda tour. I'll tell you what it is that it's all the big national writers. They want a vacation. They want a free trip down to Florida. And I will say, like, it's a situation where if you're a diehard, like, Big J reporter, all the football coaches are there, all the basketball coaches are there, the conference commissioner is there, all the ADs are there. And so you do get good access. You rub elbows, you go out for drinks, you get some whatever. And that's how you build relationships with all of the power players in the SEC. I don't this the media for going there, but it does turn into a little bit of an SEC propaganda tour. Greg Sankey is all over this 16-team playoff, and I saw Scott Strickland, the Florida AD, said we need to eliminate a committee because the committee was not the issue with SEC football last year and Alabama not getting in. The committee was not an issue with Ole Miss not getting into the playoff. You know what the issue was of Ole Miss not getting into the playoff? Losing to freaking Kentucky at home. That was why Ole Miss didn't make the playoff. And so I bring it up because I thought there was one comment from one coach who I do like that I thought, again, just crystallized this nonsense propaganda tour out of the SEC. And it came from Kalen Deboer. Okay, so I like Kalen Deboer. If you listen to the show around this time last year, I coined a phrase. I said, "Don't doubt Deboer," because he was coming from Washington. I think they called him what they call him, Matt, Pac-12 Harsin or Husky Harsin. That was what they called him. Basically said he's from the Pacific Northwest. He's going to be Brian Harsin 2.0. Brian Harsin, of course, was the failed Auburn head coach who came from Boise State. And Kalen Deboer, I thought, knocked it out of the park the first 6 months on the job. Said all the right things, hired all the right people, except for Ryan Grubb. That wasn't his fault, but hired a great recruiting staff. They put together, at one point, it looked like they might have a historically great recruiting class. They end up with a great recruiting class. So I like Kalen Deboer. But what we also can't deny is that when they took the field, there was a little bit left to be desired. It wasn't just the 9-3 season. It wasn't just the individualized losses that they had, but it was a lot of what we talked about on the show at the time. The standard that Nick Saban set wasn't just wins and losses. It was you act a certain way, you handle yourself a certain way, and there's a zero tolerance for stupidity in this program. And so you go back to Alabama last year, think about all the dumb stuff they did at the worst possible time. Malachi Moore kicking the football late in the Vandy game when the game was decided. There was a big penalty, which kind of screwed up everything in the Tennessee game. There was the video of players and staff members walking into Neyland Stadium with cigars. Remember, the cigar celebration is the customary celebration after you win the game. Alabama players and coaches, or at least support staff members, were walking in with cigars in their mouths. And you don't think Tennessee fans enjoyed that when Tennessee beat them on the field. So yes, Alabama did not live up to the standard, but there were cracks in the foundation. There were cracks in the armor, whatever you want to call it. But of course, can't say that. You got to blame the powers that be in college football, which is exactly what Kalen Deboer did. You could pop up the tweet, producer Matt. This is from Brett McMurphy, who's there. It's a quote from Kalen Deboer. He said, Kalen Deboer on being left out of the college football playoff last year. You wonder what would have happened if other people would have played our schedule. You wonder what would have happened if some other people would have played your schedule? Well, let's go ahead and break it down, because I can tell you what would have happened if other people played your schedule. First off, listen, let me even backtrack, because I'm going to kind of go in on Kalen Deboer here. But to Alabama's credit, they did beat Georgia at home. To Alabama's credit, they did go to LSU and smack them around. I still don't understand why Brian Kelly had no idea that Jalen Milroe likes to run the football, but that's another conversation. But there were some great moments in year one of the Deboer era. And there were certain reasons that were out of his control why they weren't better. Jalen Milroe, I think, was one of them. I think he kind of had to play Jalen Milroe. I don't think he wanted to play Jalen Milroe. I don't think Jalen Milroe is a great quarterback. Whatever. What you also can't deny is that the schedule is not why they were not in the college football playoff. You know why they weren't in the college football playoff? It was because there were teams on the schedule that they were supposed to beat that they didn't. Am I the only one that remembers when they went to Vandy and got Diego Pavia? Diego Pavia rushes for 1 billion yards. They can't get him off the field. And Vandy beats him. By the way, it wasn't like Vandy was some great team. I went back and looked it up today. Vandy's other SEC wins last year, outside of Alabama, Auburn 5-7. Kentucky was what, 4-8? Kentucky did not have they had one SEC win. Auburn struggled all year. Those were Vandy's other SEC wins, except for Alabama. They beat Alabama. Oh, by the way, right before the season ends, they go to Oklahoma. Oklahoma, the team that lost to they got killed by South Carolina at home, lost to Tennessee at home, lost to Missouri. They were 5-6. They were 5-6 coming into that game, 5-5 coming into that game. And they beat Alabama. And oh, by the way, don't tell me that, it was some kind of moment in time where Oklahoma figured things out. Oklahoma then proceeded to lose at LSU and then lose in their bowl game to Navy. So when Kalen Deboer says, I'd like to see how other teams would have done against our schedule, you know how Navy would have done? Navy would have beaten one of those teams that you lost to because they did beat one of those teams that you lost to. So I am so tired of this. And to me, we haven't talked much about this college football playoff expansion because I don't want to get whiny. And two, it feels inevitable. But we have to stop with all of this revisionist history with the SEC in football in 2024. Listen, college baseball World Series, college baseball tournament starting this week. The SEC is by far the best conference in college baseball. College basketball, we love college basketball. The SEC was by far the best conference in college basketball. And I think you can argue that the SEC, top to bottom, is still the best conference in the sport. I'm not going to argue that. But they weren't the best at the top of the sport last year. Ohio State won the national championship, beat Notre Dame. Penn State was in the quarterfinal. And I was thinking about this. Take Alabama out of it. There wasn't a great team in the SEC last year, period. Georgia won the SEC, but that wasn't one of the best Georgia teams. Texas finished in second. Texas lost every big game they played. They lost to Georgia twice, including in the SEC championship game. And then remember they lost to Ohio State in the semifinals of the college football playoff. Now that's not a knock on Texas. It's just a reality that you go back and look at their schedule. Best regular season win was 8-4. Texas A&M, is that the best win they had? Maybe a lousy Michigan team, maybe a lousy Vandy team. They didn't beat the cream of the crop. They beat Mississippi State. They beat Kentucky. They beat Arkansas. They didn't beat the best teams in that league. And oh, by the way, get to the playoff. I guess you could say Clemson was probably the best win on their schedule. Struggle against Clemson at home. Struggle against Arizona State. So the SEC didn't have any good teams. But I'm looking at Kalen Deboer, and it's like, dude, I love Kalen Deboer. But we're talking about a team that lost to Vandy, Oklahoma, and probably the worst Michigan team we'll see in 20 years in a bowl game. And so this idea that they somehow got screwed, they didn't get screwed. You know why you were not in the playoff? Because you could not beat Oklahoma or Vandy. Beat either one of them, and you're in the college football playoff. But it doesn't change the fact that this SEC revisionist history tour, it's unbelievable. And it's so frustrating. And again, I don't want to whine. I hate the 16-team college football playoff, though. We're going to have 5-6 SEC teams, even though there's 1 to 2 good teams. And by the way, it's the same in the Big Ten. We don't need 6 Big Ten teams in the playoff. We don't need 3 ACC teams in the playoff. I don't want to keep going on and on about it. I don't want to be negative. I feel like it was a positive glasses half full show, but goodness gracious, was this annoying. All right, I'll tell you what. I think we're going to